So this is a cancelled video I started making a good chunk of time ago, and basically I cancelled it because the script was basically just me reading off Wikipedia, which is not good, and I know that now, and I don't do that anymore, but I used to do it a good chunk, so yeah. And the reason why I didn't finish the video at the time was because it was a very long project, and now that I kind of look down upon using Wikipedia as a script, I kind of don't want to make anything more on it. I have cancelled the project. But I had done so much already, and I thought it might be interesting for you to see it because I still think the editing is okay. So here it is. It's the 29th of September 2006. A normal day for most people in most parts of the world, but not for the crew and passengers on board Gol Flight in 1907. They found themselves in an uncontrollable plane, rolling wildly in the air. Will they make it out alive? Stay watching to find out. Aircraft and crew. The Gol Transport Air's twin-turbofan Boeing 737-800 aircraft, registered Papa Romeo Golf Tango Delta, was a new short-field performance variant with 186 seats. It made its first flight on the 22nd of August 2006 and was delivered to Gol on the 12th of September 2006, less than 3 weeks before the accident. 6 crew members and 148 passengers were on board the Boeing airliner that day. The 6 crew members and 105 of the passengers were Brazilian. The remaining passengers were of various other nationalities: 10 Argentinian passengers, 6 American passengers, 5 Mexican passengers, 4 French passengers, 4 Venezuelan passengers, 3 Australian passengers, 3 Canadian passengers, 3 Colombian passengers, 2 Portuguese passengers, 2 South African passengers, and 1 Japanese passenger. The crew consisted of Captain Decio Chaves Jr., which was 44-year-old at the time, First Officer Taigo Giordao Crusoe, which was 29 at the time, and 4 flight attendants. The captain, who had also been serving as a Boeing 747 flight instructor for Gol, had 15,498 total flight hours, with 13,521 of them in the Boeing 747 aircraft. The first officer had a total of 3,981 flight hours, with 3,081 being flown in the 747 aircraft. Gol Flight 1907 departed Ecuador Gomez International Airport in Manaus on the 29th of September 2006 at 15:35 Brazilian Standard Time, which is 18:35 UTC, en route to Rio de Janeiro Galeão International Airport, with a planned intermediate stop at Brasilia International Airport. At the same time, an Embraer Legacy 600 is flying over Brazil. The twin-turbofan Embraer Legacy 600 business jet, serial number 965 and registration November 600 X-Ray Lima, newly built by Embraer and purchased by XLR Service Inc. of Ronkonkoma, New York, was on a delivery flight by XLR from the Embraer factory to United States. It departed from São José dos Campos Professor Urban Ernesto Stumpf Airport near Sao Paulo at 14:51 Brazilian Standard Time, which is 17:51 UTC, and was en route to Eduardo Gomes International Airport in Manaus as a planned intermediate stop. The XLR flight crew consisted of Captain Joseph Lepore, which was 42-year-old at the time, and First Officer Jan Paul Palladino, which was 34 at the time, Both were US citizens. The Paul had been a commercial pilot for more than 20 years and had logged 9,388 total flight hours, with 5.5 hours in the Legacy 600. Palladino had been a commercial pilot for a decade and had accumulated more than 6,400 flight hours, including 3.5 hours in the Legacy 600, as well as 370 hours flying as a captain of Embraer ERJ-145 and ERJ-135 jet aircraft for American Eagle Airlines. Palladino had also served as a first officer for American Airlines, flying MD-82, MD-83, and Boeing 737-800 aircraft between the US and Canada. Both pilots were legally qualified to fly the Embraer Legacy as captains. There were also 5 other people on board, 3 American and 2 Brazilian. 2 of the 5 passengers were Embraer employees, 2 were XLR executives, and the 5th passenger was the New York Times business travel columnist Joe Sharkey, who was writing a report for a business jet traveler. The collision. At 16:56 Brazilian Standard Time, which is 1956 UTC, the Boeing 737 and the Embraer Legacy jet collided almost head-on at 37,000 feet, approximately midway between Brasilia and Manaus, near the town of Matupa, 750 kilometers southeast of Manaus. The left winglet of the Embraer sheared off about half of the 737's left wing, causing the 737 to nosedive and enter an uncontrollable spin, which quickly led to an in-flight breakup. The cockpit voice recorder cut off at 16:57, less than a minute after the collision. The Boeing 737 eventually crashed into an area of dense rainforest, 200 kilometers east of the municipality of Paixoto de Acevedo. All 154 passengers and crew died, and the aircraft was destroyed, with the wreckage scattered in pieces around the crash site. The Embraer jet was able to continue flying, despite serious damage to the left horizontal stabilizer and left winglet, though its autopilot disengaged and it required an unusual amount of force on the yoke to keep the wings level. With radio relay assistance from Polar Air Cargo Flight 71, Boeing 747 cargo aircraft flying in the area at the time, the Embraer's crew successfully landed the crippled jet at Cachimbo Airport, part of the large military complex Campo de Provas Brigadeiro Veloso, at about 160 kilometers from the collision point. Passenger and journalist Joe Sharkey described his experience on board the Embraer in an article for the New York Times titled "Colliding with Death and Living," filed on the 1st of October 2006. He said, "And it had been a nice ride. Minutes before we were hit, I had wandered up to the cockpit to chat with the pilots, who said the plane was flying beautifully. I saw the readout that showed our altitude, 37,000 feet. I returned to my seat. Minutes later came the strike. Detention. Immediately after the Embraer's emergency landing at the Cachimbo Air Base, Brazilian Air Force and Agência Nacional de Aviação civil officials detained and interviewed the flight crew. The 2 black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, were removed from the Embraer and sent to São José dos Campos, São Paulo, and from there to Ottawa, Canada, at the Transportation Safety Board laboratories for analysis. In an initial deposition, the Embraer flight crew testified that they were cleared to flight level 370, about 37,000 feet above mean sea level. by Brasilia ATC and were level at that assigned altitude when the collision occurred. They also asserted that they had lost contact with Brasilia ATC at the time of the collision, and their anti-collision system did not alert them to any oncoming traffic. On the 2nd of October 2006, the Andreas captain and first officer were ordered by the Mato Grosso Justice Tribunal to surrender their passports pending further investigation. The request made by the Piaxoto de Aviado prosecutor was granted by Judge Tiago Sousa Nogueira e Abreu, who stated that the possibility of pilot error on the part of the Embraer could not be ruled out. The Embraer crew was forced to remain in Brazil until their passports were released to them on the 5th of December 2006, more than 2 months after the accident, after federal judge Candido Ribeiro ruled no legal grounds existed for restricting the freedom of motion of the foreigners. Prior to their scheduled departure to the United States, the crew was formally charged by Brazilian federal police with endangering an aircraft, which carries a penalty up to 12 years in prison. They were allowed to leave the country after signing a document promising to return to Brazil for their trials or when requested by Brazilian authorities. They picked up their passports and flew back to the US. Search. And that's where it ends. I did not finish it from there. I did not make anything on it from there. So yeah. Here comes the outro. And that's all. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.